This is Quickshift Tornado for Season 4. It has a ton of DPS and you're going to need it because these pit bosses this season are tough. Look at how easily it cuts through a tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon. Now the damage is crazy in this build, but what really shines is the survivability. This is the first time I've ever used the Poise Glyph, and it allows us to constantly get a new barrier as we're shapeshifting. And if that weren't enough, we have access to almost every type of damage reduction, including the best one, Debilitating Roar. And because we're using the Hunter Zenith, we're able to get those resets all the time. Now maybe you're not a fan of Tornado, so let me show you something. If you go to the link below the video and go to Mobalytics, if you click on my profile, you can see all of the different builds that I've published for Season 4. And this isn't even including the ones I haven't gotten around to publishing yet. So if you're not sure what you want to play, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll help you find the build for you. Now that we got that out of the way, let me break the build down for you. So for our skills, we went with Tornado, Maul, Debilitating Roar, and all three of the companion skills. Our main damage source is going to be our Tornado, and this is going to be the werewolf side of our build. This is also going to be using all of our spirit, whereas Maul is going to be the one generating our spirit, and this is the werebear side of the build. We also get werebear from Debilitating Roar, so either one works when you're trying to get the quick shift bonuses. Now the reason Tornado works as a werewolf skill is because we're using Tempest Roar. This turns our storm skills into werewolf skills. We do that for a few different reasons, partially for spirit gain. It also allows us to instantly poison enemies. And for this build specifically, it allows us to get our heightened senses, our quick shift, and our poise bonuses. Not to mention some other things like masochistic, which is going to heal us. Now Maul actually does a lot of things in this build. So one thing is that it CCs mobs and bosses. It generates a ton of spirit and it has a high lucky hit chance, so it's really good for getting our masochistic bonuses. And it opens up other bonuses in our gear. For example, we've got the fevered mauling aspect. This is going to give us damage reduction and it's going to give us attack speed, as well as aspect of might, which is going to give us a fat damage reduction. The only caveat with Maul is you have to be a little bit careful because with Hunter Zenith, if you get a free cast by killing something with a werewolf skill, Maul can use up that free cast. I'm not sure why this works this way because Maul doesn't actually have a spirit cost or a cooldown, but it still eats that bonus. So typically what I do in that situation is I'll just spam cast tornadoes for a second, make sure that something died, and then cast my Debilitating Roar. But this build is safe enough to where you don't really have to do that. You can kind of just play and use Debilitating Roar, and most of the time you're going to get the free reset. I pretty much already covered everything with Debilitating Roar, but this is a huge damage reduction, so make sure you cast this as much as possible. It lasts for 4 seconds, so you don't have to cast it more often than that. Now, I'm sure you guys are used to it and probably even tired of it at this point, but the companions are there to scale our damage. The way that works is that Shepherd's Aspect and Aspect of the Stampede, this one gives us more companions, and this one gives us a percentage of damage based on the number of companions that we have. It's hard to get past because it's the best way to scale your damage. Outside of that, you can use the Ravens for the critical strike chance. You can use Poison Creeper for some immobilize, and the wolves can act as decent meat shields. Now for our spirit boons, we're doing Wariness, Iron Feather, Avian Wrath, Energize, and Masochistic. For our gear, we're doing Tempest Roar, Fevered Mauling, Storm Chasers, Aspect of Might, Wild Heart Hunger, Retaliation, Shepherd's Aspect, Aspect of the Stampede, Hunter Zenith, and Accelerating. If you've masterworked your gear to a point that you have a lot of attack speed, then you could probably drop Accelerating and go for another damage source here. I think that Conceited would probably be the best choice in this build. Since we have Poise, we're going to be getting those barriers quite often. Another consideration is that you could drop Stampede down to here, and you could run one of the resource options in the ring slot. Now what I would prefer to do here is drop the Accelerating eventually and go for the Starless Skies. If you do that, move the Stampede down and put the Starless Skies in that place. For the stats on the written guide, you're going to want to click on Gear Stats here, and you're going to be able to see the breakdown of all the specifics. I recommend going to the written guide for this, but the things I want to draw your attention to are Ranks of Envenom. If you happen to get a greater affix of this, then I'd recommend getting every single bonus in Masterworking onto Envenom. If you don't have a greater affix for this, you're probably going to be better off getting your bonuses into damage to close enemies. And if I remember correctly, you only need one bonus in Envenom to get the extra point once you get to max Masterworking. The same goes for Ranks to Tornado. Other than that, your sole focus should be trying to get all of your bonuses into damage to close enemies, and on your weapons, chance for tornado projectiles to cast twice. For everything else, it'd probably be alright if you had stuff in random places, but you can do that at your own discretion. For our gems, we're going with Sapphire on the weapon, Ruby on the armor, and Diamonds on the jewelry. As always, if you cap your resists and you don't need all the diamonds, you can run some skulls here, but the goal for both armor and for resistances should just be to hit the cap. But if you hit a point where you've capped both, and you're not sure which one you should have here, put the diamonds here instead, because what you can do is you can pull points out of the skill tree and use them somewhere else. Speaking of skill tree, we're going to go to Maul, and we're going to go to Wild Maul, We're going to max out Wild Impulses, max out Tornado, and get Raging Tornado. Max out Digidegrade and Iron Fur. We're going to be maxing out Ancestral Fortitude, Vigilance, and putting 1 point in Debilitating Roar, going to Preserving Debilitating Roar. We're going to get 1 point in Wolves, 1 point in Poison Creeper, 1 point in Ravens, going to Brutal Ravens. We're going to max out our Envenom and get 1 point in Toxic Claws. And since I had this question asked on a previous video, the 1 point in Toxic Claws is allowing our Tornado to apply poison to enemies, which activates our ability to do increased damage to them with Envenom. We're going to max out Defiance, put 1 point in Circle of Life, max out Quickshift, max out Heightened Senses, max out Unrestrained, and finally our last point is going into Bestial Rampage. Now some of you guys don't like Bestial Rampage because you don't like having to wait in each form in order to get the bonuses. In this build, when you're constantly attacking back and forth between the Maul and the Tornado, you're going to have these naturally. There is almost no time where you will not have these up if you are just playing naturally. What I typically do is when I'm attacking, I just attack pressing both of my left click and my right click, which is my Tornado and my Maul. What that'll do is it'll cast Tornado when you have Spirit, and it'll cast Maul when you don't. For the Paragons on the starting board, we're going with Outmatch. Then we're going to move up. We're going to attach the Ancestral Guidance board, and here we're putting Earth and Sky. Moving to the left from here, we're putting Constricting Tendrils, and we're going to put the Territorial Glyph. Back across to the right of Ancestral Guidance, we're going to be attaching the Thunderstruck board, and here we're going to be putting the Poise Glyph. Moving up from here, we're going to be attaching the Heightened Malice board, and here we're putting the Fang and Claw Glyph. To the left from here, we're going to be attaching our Lust for Carnage board, and this is where we're putting our Spirit Glyph. At the end I had a few extra points, so I added Fleeting, and this is just to add to that control reduction so that we don't have to worry about having things like Bulwark or having things like Trample. Now the only glyph I was kind of sad I couldn't get in here was Undaunted. So if you're wanting more survivability, you could always pull Spirit out and run Undaunted instead. But other than that, there's not much that you can do in order to change these boards. Now this is probably my favorite build of the season so far. So if you guys are trying to push in the pits, I'd recommend going with this for now over my other builds. But I know some of you guys are looking forward to some other stuff like Boulder, so I'm going to be working on that next. Once I get a chance to play on a little bit of everything, I'll make a tier list and then I'll let you guys know what my recommended builds are for this season. If you haven't already, hit the like button on the video and comment below. I'm interested to know if you guys are more interested in fun builds or powerful builds. I like to do weird and interesting things, but a lot of times the stronger builds are the most boring. So let me know what you think. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Why are there 500 planes flying over while I'm recording?